Sit. Sit. Sit down!
One is you gotta know your craft. You gotta really know your craft. You gotta really know film. There are aesthetics that need to be understood. So I would say study art and study writing, because you've got to know narrative and you've got to know image creation. You know, I'm not crazy about people who have sat behind a writing desk their whole life and then they suddenly think they're a film director. You've got to be on sets and you've got to know what it takes and you got to know what's going to happen.
Remember
when it
this?
starts to rain or when the sun's going down.
It's been almost 15 years since James Cameron graced us with one of his most successful films being the original Avatar. And let's just say the sequel was, well, more than anticipated. Normally, when a sequel takes this long to come out, it's because it wasn't wanted, but clearly that's not the case here. The answer is actually in the title, as the water elements in this movie did bring some complications, leading to a relatively long wait. A wait that wasn't quite as long for others, as not everybody was as keen on the original movie. Yeah, it had some great action and nice effects, well, it kind of thrived in those categories. But aside from the Avatar theme itself, it didn't really do that much to stand out. Luckily, with the anticipation being so high, it's not like James Cameron would do the same thing again, right? Right? I mean, you got the water effects that took all these years to make, and a lot of colorful things to look at. But there's a host of new ideas too, like a popular villain being retconned back in, a runtime that exceeds 3 hours, and the ever so relevant environmental message about something everybody already agrees is wrong. Well, I'm sure they don't spend too much time on that. We also get a plot full of original ideas, like being accepted into a new area that's different, teenage drama because why not, and a bad guy for the sake of being bad, seeking revenge for the sake of revenge. I think a good way to describe this movie would be self-indulgent. It's got great effects and is nice to look at, but like many other films with a director that simply couldn't be told no, I hear Star Wars is a good example, this is about what you get. A movie that prioritizes visuals above storytelling, and very little in terms of character development. Essentially the first movie, so the question is it a slight improvement, or the exact same thing, but with water? Let's find out. This is Avatar 2, The Way of the Water. Oh, who would have seen this intro coming? The purpose of this lengthy opening narration by Jake Sully, again played by Sam Worthington, is to show us what we normally wouldn't have understood without said narration. Like all the kids they have now. I mean, we couldn't have just established that through dialogue and watching events play out. No, we needed that explained to us. This includes their 2 sons, Obedient and Defiant, played by Jamie Flatters and Brighton Dalton respectively, their daughter Took, played by Trinity Bliss, and their adopted daughter Plot Device, played by Sigourney Weaver. Honestly, I can't believe they didn't just retcon her old character back in. I mean, with this, that's saying something. Then there is Spider, played by Jack Champion, who was too young to be kicked out, but that's okay, he loves being there, and considers them family. Minor details, like the fact that an accident could lead to his death because he can't breathe the air, are ignored, and instead we get some classic James Cameron character development, as Neytiri, again played by Zoe Saldana, doesn't like him that much, and I bet you'll never guess why. In many ways, it's the film's defining moment. If you didn't see that line coming, then this movie's for you. If you did see it coming and you keep watching, you got nobody else to blame. But then the evil sky people, otherwise known as people, return with only one goal in mind: colonizing Pandora. Why, you may ask? Because the Earth is dying. Humans have obviously destroyed it, and the only option is to colonize a planet where they can't breathe.
That's fucking stupid!
We cut ahead a year because that's the way this goes, and as promised, Colonel Cliché, again played by Stephen Lang, is back.
Ain't this a bitch?
No, that would require emotion. You know, the idea of not being happy about this. It turns out, before the events of the first movie, he had his memories and, personality saved along with the other deceased soldiers and implanted in the Avatar bodies. This means he won't remember the events of that movie, including his death, not that it really fucking matters. But the point is, he wants revenge on the person who didn't actually kill him, that was Neytiri, but details are for losers.
You gotta know your craft.
Meanwhile, spectacle, action, and explosions. They blow up an evil human train and raid it for the guns inside. The obedient brother almost gets killed, who, get this, wasn't supposed to be there.
What are you doing here, boy? What the hell were you thinking? I'm sorry, sir.
I'm obedient. I will not do it again. Forgive me, sir. Please, sir. Obedient I am. Sully's not happy about this, and if you're expecting these characters to have something in the form of an arc, well, you've kind of already seen it. Sully and Neytiri have practically nothing in terms of development, aside from being kind of too strict sometimes. So the story tends to focus more on the new characters, being the kids, which again, aren't really that fascinating. One's more obedient, one isn't. One's used as a plot device later, and one's just there. I know this is probably said quite often, but you really can't get around this.
You gotta know your craft.
It's also heavily implied that Spider is Colonel Cliché's son, which she is, giving us some truly endless possibilities.
Spider, you are not him.
I can smell the potential already. Luckily for Colonel Cliché, him and his team are now blue and can sneak in undetected, allowing them to get the upper hand. It just so happens that Sully's kids are in the vicinity at the same time, and decide to track them even though they were told to do nothing of the sort if something like this was to happen. Okay, we don't actually see them being told that, but we knew it was gonna go this way. They get captured, and because they have 5 fingers, meaning they're half-breeds, he knows they must be Sully's kids. He plans to make them talk, but then realizes that Spider is in fact his son. How he knows that, I don't know. But I guess that's a good reason to not interrogate them right here, and instead take them prisoner. You know how this goes.
Contact rear! Contact rear!
So we have ourselves a little conflict, and as usual, it's fun to watch. It would help if I gave a shit, but that's not happening. And Spider gets separated and taken away, as he has a bigger role to play in this movie's plot. Which is a weird combination of a few things, but memorable it is not. The rest escape and decide their family must leave to keep the others safe.
If the people harbor us, they will die. Do you understand?
No, I don't understand. They still want to colonize, and even if Spider does tell them the operation, they're not gonna stop just because you leave. If anything, it make it easier. Don't know if you've forgotten, but the Earth is dying, and they need this place to live, even though they can't breathe there, and that goes way beyond Colonel Cliché's need for revenge. He could just say he cares more about his family than the village, and the new village they'll soon endanger, but why go there?
You gotta know your craft.
Speaking of Spider, they do have some type of device to make him talk. I'm not sure what it does, but it looks cool. And the Colonel says, hey, why not just come along with me instead so they'll stop torturing you, and we'll take things from there. I guess the idea is that he might join him eventually, which we know won't happen, but it gets the plot moving. There's also a weird theme that he says he's not really him, even though he has his memories and his personality.
I'm not your father. Technically, you and I, we're nothing to each other.
I get it, he's supposed to not care about his son, so we can build up to a moment when he eventually does, but he's an asshole. The definition of a generic bad guy. Why not just not have him care? Why do we need all this weird, pointless shit?
You gotta know your craft.
So Sully and his family prepare to leave so they'll be safe, but first there must be a new leader.
The leader must die.
Wow, only 45 minutes? That was short. No, in actuality, they just leave in an emotional scene of sadness and head to the movie's new area to live with the Sea People.
The Sea Clans are a world unto themselves. Thousands of islands.
No, I'm sticking with Sea People, get over it. The film then wastes no time establishing the important elements of this tribe to truly make them stand out and feel unique.
Look, what is that? Is that supposed to be a tail?
Asshole teenager, check. Soon to be love interest, check.
Well, we will learn your ways, all right?
Yes.
And not being wanted because they're different, only to be accepted a few minutes later just because, check.
You gotta know your craft.
So they let them in despite knowing they're at war, and important character attributes are established. Plot device is annoyed by this because that's what teenagers do, only for this to become irrelevant a few scenes later. Took is real upset and wants to go home, despite this. And while Obedient is gonna do nothing but be obedient, Defiant is, well, either gonna overcome his nature and grow as a character in a way that feels natural, or save that for the final scene and spend the rest of the movie almost getting them kicked out. See if you can guess which one happens. The asshole teenager and love interest, played by Philip Geljo and Bailey Bass, respectively, take them diving, in which he makes fun of them for not getting it right away, because why not make this into a team drama? No, really, that's what this is now for a good part of it. All the elements are there, and these new characters only exist for that reason.
You gotta know your craft.
However, we are at that part of the movie that needs to kill time by showing us stuff that's fun to look at. That includes new rides, majestic imagery, breathing, and of course, water. Just to be clear, there's not anything wrong with that, but you kinda gotta do a bit more than just show us pretty things. Then again, the box office says you don't, but since we're probably getting at least 3 more of these things, it's gonna make discussing this a bit repetitive. Who am I kidding? Nobody stops at 5 anymore. Colonel Cliché and his men get themselves rides, don't know why Spider's happy about that, and there is still the matter of Defiance's arc and how it plays out. If you voted he'd overcome his nature and grow as a character in a way that feels natural,
First I ball it up real tight like this, okay? Then,
you've apparently forgotten what this movie is. If you voted save that for the final scene and spend the rest of the movie almost getting them kicked out, then congratulations! You know exactly what to expect from a James Cameron movie. The thing is, the asshole teenager is also the chief's son, because why wouldn't he be, so he has to apologize.
I'm sorry I hit you. So many times. We should be friends.
This is a tough one. I mean, there is the possibility that he really does want to be friends, as they've had their fight and the arc has run its course. But it does seem more likely that it's some kind of trick to make him look stupid, as it's the most obvious.
Outside the reef. It's where the men hunt.
Let's do it.
It's the obvious one. So they leave him, and he's attacked by a giant fish, which is probably the best scene in the movie. I mean, I know there's big spectacle to come, but this particular scene does kind of stand out. It has tension, it's well-paced, and it actually does something with the water element, which for the most part is just a backdrop. That being the fact that he can't stay under that long, but luckily he's saved by a whale. That's what I'm calling it, it's a whale. a whale that he immediately bonds with, and upon returning, he tells the chief it was all his idea, because...
As I know what it's like to be one big disappointment.
But get this, it turns out that particular whale was outcast, and nobody believes that he spoke to him. Wait, what?
I trust you. You can trust me.
Oh yeah, he speaks to the damn thing. Gotta kill time somehow.
You gotta know your craft.
Speaking of wasting time, Plot Device uses their underwater spirit tree to link to her mother Grace, which causes her to have a seizure. And the humans, with their modern technology, do fuck all to help.
Ouch! You have done nothing!
Okay, hold on, I gotta take her IV.
That's right, parents. If your kids have a seizure while in the water, don't call a doctor. Just do this. This, of course, brings her back, but she can't use the tree again, or she might die. It's a devastating scene of relentless sadness, leaving us with unanswered questions that may be answered in the next sequel. Can't wait. But believe it or not, this scene is not completely pointless. In fact, it's the most relevant thing yet, as Colonel Cliché has tracked the helicopter, I guess nobody thought about that, and he teams up with Captain Scoresby, played by Brenda Cowell, to... What? What the fuck's going on? We interrupt one of the few moments of tension in this movie to bring you visuals. What? Visuals? Like water, and whales, lots of whales, and more water. Fuck your water, and fuck your whales. I don't want to see that right now. I want to see villages get burned, and senseless violence. It's not good writing, but it's better than the last hour and a half of bullshit. But if you really want to kill time, just like the video. It's right down there, and subscribe. You know the drill. So Colonel Cliché has them kill animals and threatens to kill them to get information on Sully, but Spider tells him it's wrong, so they burn the place down instead.
Sorry.
Don't touch me!
What did you think was gonna happen? Did you think he was just gonna ask nicely? They then leave without questioning them again because, you know, evil and stupid.
You gotta know your craft.
Luckily, Scoresby happens to be a whaler, which incidentally is the reason the important whale was outcast for killing whalers, which they don't allow, in case you were wondering. And he has them kill the whales outside the village to draw out Jake and his family, and we know this is just an excuse to show off whaling and that it's bad. Cameron, we know whaling is bad. Almost everybody agrees that whaling is bad and not justifiable in any way. I know disagreement on political issues is normally met with the response, you just don't care, but it's killing a majestic animal for money. If you agree with that, I don't think this is gonna change your mind. Ah, a jolly good day for a spot of whaling, eh? Well, yeah, it's just that. Just what? Well, don't you think there is something unethical about this? Unethical? Yeah, see, I was watching this real popular movie, and it has this relevant scene on why whaling might not be good. Really? A whole scene just for that? Yeah, and James Cameron made it, who, let's face it, really knows his craft. Well, I never really thought of it that way. I mean, it's not like we're bad people or anything. No, it's just that making a lot of money might not be a good enough reason to stick a harpoon into a majestic animal. Oh damn, you're right. If only it was more obvious. It's a good thing we have folks like James Cameron to point out stuff that we can't be expected to know. I hereby decree on this day to never whale again, and it's all thanks to good old James Cameron. The whale population is saved, and it's all thanks to James Cameron.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
They even throw in a line about wasting it to make them look even more evil, even though it's never explained.
You gotta know your craft.
And it definitely does the trick, giving us another scene of desolate despair.
She was my spirit sister. She was the composer of songs.
Oh, it's not just any whale. It's a whale that a character we kind of know especially cared about. As expected, they're pretty mad about this, sticking out their tongues in disgust, something we've never seen them do yet, proving just how pissed off they are. Sully then tells them they have to leave because if they don't, they'll be destroyed. Which, again, doesn't really make any sense. At the beginning of the movie, they left to keep their family safe. We don't know who would have won, so I think this scene is just there because it's supposed to be. But if we have our lead act this way now, just imagine how much more epic the climax will be. The anticipation is killing me. Defiant runs off to help his outcast whale brother, something that's not said too often, and pull out the tracking device so it won't be killed. The adults find out about this and head out to save them.
You should stay back.
All right. Come.
The baby will be fine, is Last of Us Part 2 logic here. This leads to a lot of them being captured, meaning Sully has no choice but to give him what he wants.
You brought this upon us. You.
You mean you just figured out that shit now? What the fuck did you think was going on? It's okay though, he can still do the right thing now, forgiving all casualties he may have caused, but he doesn't have to, as the whale brother has shown up, setting the final battle in motion, meaning he won't have to die. Yeah, a lot of their people are still gonna be killed because he brought them there, but nobody's gonna think of it that way.
You gotta know your craft.
So the epic climax is on, but unlike the first movie, instead of the air, it's the sea. Bodies are flying, shit's being blown up, and plot device can do this now.
Freeze! That's on!
You have to have something to do, I guess. Spider finally does something of use, causing the ship to crash, and the evil whaler gets his comeuppance. Is he dead? I mean, that probably wouldn't initially kill you. Let me check the wiki. Unknown. Or, in other words, to be retconned back in with a big mechanical harpoon arm. I'm calling it. They escape, but then plot device gets captured, meaning Took and love interest must go back in. This leads to Took getting tied up again.
Can't believe I'm tied up again.
And the brothers' dumbasses rescue Spider. Unfortunately obedient to make the mistake of having no predictable arc, and developing characters over time is not the James Cameron way. So he dies, in another sad scene of sadness, that relies on the fact that it's somebody's kid instead of actually making you give a damn.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. They have our daughters. They have our daughters.
So, in case you didn't know this is the same guy who directed Terminator 2, which, under the assumption that you've seen it, concludes with a much sadder scene than this, even though that was a robot a kid knew for a few days. Was it a sad scene? Hell yeah, because that movie was well written and the characters were developed. I don't expect any film to top that, but a family watching their son bleed to death should be the infinitely sadder moment. But when the character at hand has no personality traits aside from being obedient, and the parents have no development whatsoever, you tend to not give a damn.
What the fuck happened to you, man? Your ass used to be beautiful.
He blames it on Defiant, even though he didn't do anything wrong this time, and they head back in to save their kids.
That's right. They're coming for you.
Was a second take at that not allowed? This leads to a standoff, but the savvy viewer will recall that Neytiri doesn't like Spider that much, as mentioned one time at the beginning, and threatens to kill him if he doesn't let plot device go. The outcome here is obvious, but if you're wondering if this will ever get brought up again, the fact that she may have been willing to kill him, no, it won't.
You're not leaving, are you, Jake?
It's okay.
I'm coming for you. When I do, I'll kill your whole family. Let's get it done.
Kind of a cool line. So they fight while the other characters get separated in various spots, and it would again make for a great scene if I cared for those in question. Colonel Cliché gets choked out, Defiant goes back to save his dad, and Plot Device does plot device stuff, and they all escape. May not be the happiest of times due to their dead kid, but at least Colonel Cliché's gone. So let me get this straight. Instead of helping to save them, he instead decided to rescue his evil dad, who just said he would kill their entire family. Are you satisfied?
You gotta know your craft.
He still leaves him, obviously not mentioning any of this. And luckily for them, the Sea People don't mind the fact that they brought the war there. I'm sure the body count wasn't that high.
And there it was. We are Sea People now.
Wait, they really call themselves the Sea People? That's fucking stupid. But at least the movie can finally end on the meaningful note that this is their home, and this is where they'll make their stand. They could have just done that back in the forest that they're likely trying to colonize right now. That was the idea, in case you forgot. But that was Avatar 2. And it's the same shit. When it comes to the Avatar movies, I think there's 3 things you can guarantee. You're gonna get some cinematic action scenes, it's gonna have beautiful effects, and the rest is gonna be the bare minimum of what's needed to hold these together. Characters have no development, unbearably cliche dialogue, writing and motivations that make no sense more than half the time, and to top it all off, a forced environmental message about something everybody already agrees is a bad thing. I get the idea is that humans are meant to be evil and not care about nature, but when you make most of the movie about revenge, you kind of forget about that message. Keep in mind, the plan was to colonize a planet they can't fucking breathe on, so maybe that's a good thing. Oddly enough, despite what is a long analysis, there's not really a lot to say about it. This movie is about spectacle and effects, as was the first movie, and based on the box office, so will the upcoming sequels. Like I said at the beginning, self-indulgent may be the best way to describe this. I tried to like the movie, hoping something so popular couldn't be the same thing again, but that's really all I can make of it. Obviously, James Cameron couldn't be told no, and as long as these movies continue to make the money they do, you can't really expect any change. He may think it's all about the craft, but honestly, I think this comes down to the writing. I'm the analyst, and remember kids,
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
so you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.